Hi, this is Brian Kim. I want to share with you this case of a patient who was referred for a dislocated 3-piece IOL, and you're going to see explantation and a fairly straightforward Yamane technique using my modified technique, externalizing the leading haptic through a contralateral limbal incision, using the Sensar IOL, which has, again, the right curvature to the haptic, and then tackling the trailing haptic first with this PMMA haptic IOL. Again, using the concepts of docking the haptic on the bevel of the needle, being strategic about where you make your incisions, where you make your marks, and how to position the needle so you can have the most effective and efficient way to perform the technique. So first of all, before you mark, you gotta dry the eye first. So I'm drying the eye excessively with the Wexel sponge. This is the first most important thing I do. Of course, you can see the dislocated lens already there. I use the tip of a 27 gauge cannula that has some ink on it, and I ink the limbus on the right side, and then I'm using the cannula to find 180 degrees apart on the other side, and I mark the limbus on the other side. And this is a fixed caliper that's 2.5 millimeters posterior to that mark, and then 2 millimeters adjacent to that mark. And I indent the sclera on the right side, and then I do the exact same thing on the left side, again, marking in radial fashion, 2.5 millimeters posterior to that limbal mark, and then 2 millimeters adjacent. I take that inked cannula that I used before. First, I dry with the Wexel sponge, and then I ink the conjunctiva on the right side, and then on the left side. This is the trocar needle. Go ahead and indent the sclera 4 millimeters posterior, and then I'm going to tunnel towards that mark about 3 millimeters, tunnel with the blade, and then rotating perpendicular and then diving down. And then I switch to the cotton tip. The cotton tip is so much better at controlling the eye. So I'm able to turn the eye towards me and then make my contralateral incision for the externalizing of the leading haptic. That is my incision for the AC maintainer. And these incisions are for the explantation of that dislocated lens. I inject some dispersive viscoelastic to protect the cornea, and then using the cannula to control the eye. This is the 3 millimeter diamond blade. I make a vertical groove, place the blade into the deep part of the groove, tunnel, and then enter. And I make sure that incision is perpendicular to my marks. Grab the edge of the IOL and I'm turning it. And then I'm trying to gently sweep the trailing haptic into the anterior chamber. I'm grabbing it a little bit, and you can see I lifted it and popped it up, and then trying to do the same thing with the leading haptic. I'm lifting the optic some more with the left side forceps, getting around the optic on the right side and sweeping the right side forceps along the iris, and now I was able to pop the leading haptic into the anterior chamber. Now, using a two-handed technique, I'm turning the lens, and I'm turning the lens in such a way that I can strategically bisect the lens in such a way that it's easiest for me to pull the lens pieces out. You want to make sure the haptic collapses on itself when you pull the pieces out. You don't want the haptic to act like a hook, like a fish hook, and get caught in the incision or scrape the corneal endothelium. So go ahead and bisect the lens completely, and I'm able to do that because each of the haptics are in the anterior chamber. And then I switch to 2 forceps, and I first tackle the right side piece. I cut it in such a way that the right side haptic was going to collapse on itself. And then now I have to rotate this lens piece 180 degrees. For some reason, it's just slipping from my grasp. With the forceps, go ahead and twirl that piece around. But as I do that, it seems like the lens piece is trying to rotate counterclockwise again. So I'm struggling a little bit, but that's fine. I'm taking my time. And then I decided to, again, try to go for it with two hands, pushing the lens, rotating it clockwise. Still having trouble. And then I grab it with the left forceps, and then I was able to stabilize it, and then grab with the right forceps, and then pull the piece out. This is the 22 gauge thin-walled AC maintainer. Place it through that incision, and then steri strip it down. First things first, you're going to see there's a lot of water coming out of the incision, and with that, there's going to be vitreous. So you have to stop, and then I put a Wexel sponge over the incision, and then I'm going to cut. Again, not a whole lot of vitreous there, but the point is that the wound was gaped. And so I go ahead and cut that vitreous, and then now you can see once the vitreous is cut, it's not holding the wound open, and now I do not have that fluid egress coming out of the main incision. So that's very important. If you see a lot of fluid egress out of your main incision, that means there's probably vitreous within the incision. Go ahead and amputate it, remove it. Inject some intracameral Kenalog, and then perform some more pars plano vitrectomy. You can see there's not much vitreous that's seen here. And as I've said in many of my previous cases, in this situation where there's spontaneous late dislocation, it's my feeling that the mechanism of the dislocation has to do with the vitreous changing, not so much that the lens is become just dramatically unstable out of nowhere. No, it's because the vitreous has changed, the support of the vitreous has gotten weaker, and therefore the lens starts to descend. And so as a result, when you're taking the lens pieces out and you're doing vitrectomy, I don't really encounter a lot of vitreous usually in this situation. This is the 25 gauge needle. I bend it so that the bevel is going to face to the right. And when I say to the right, that assumes that the syringe is pointed up because that's how I'm holding it, okay? This is the right side needle that I just bent, and I bend it about 9 millimeters from the tip. And this is the left side needle, bending it to the hub. I always make sure that the bevel of the needle is always going to be facing the approach of the haptic. And here's the cartridge. Go ahead and push some cohesive viscoelastic through the barrel, placing the Sensar lens within the platform, making sure it's seated down, making sure the optic bends and folds concavely. The leading haptic comes out straight through the barrel, and the trailing haptic comes out to the back end of the injector. Placing the cartridge into the injector, making sure the trailing haptic is sticking up outside of the barrel here. So I'm using forceps to lift it up. Right there. So good. It's nice and up. And as you advance the plunger, you do not want to cut or hit that haptic and damage it. This is a twist style plunger. Go ahead and advance the lens. And as you've noticed, probably with these cases, as I've gotten better with these cases, I've gone to lower and lower mag. I think in the beginning of these cases, I was at higher mag, but now that I've become more comfortable, I actually go in lower mag. So I like to see kind of a macro view of what I'm doing. Place the 25 gauge needle through the contralateral limbal incision. Place the injector through the main incision. My assistant is advancing the lens. Once the leading haptic comes out, I dock the leading haptic on the bevel of the needle. She advances the lens even more more of the leading haptic is internalized into that needle. I'm able to pull the needle out, and as I do that, the leading haptic comes out passively through that incision. I go ahead and take over and deliver the optic as well as a trailing haptic You can see in this case the optic is still bent, and so the haptics are sitting a little funny, but you can just push the haptics in such a way that it goes the way you're supposed to. And then I push some more dispersive viscoelastic to push the optic back and to coat the corneal endothelium. Hold the trocar with the forceps here. I stab the needle through the first mark, stabbing through conjunctiva and sclera. You want to make sure you're fairly flat and you're tunneling through the sclera. You should feel the resistance as you go towards the second mark, and when you reach the second mark, you dive down. And very carefully here, and you do that with infusion on because you need a nice firm globe. When I place the trailing haptic into the eye, you can see the irrigation is on, but then as I enter the incision, I turn irrigation off. Why? Because all I'm doing is creating more fluid coming out of the incision. And you see very carefully, I'm able to dock the haptic on the bevel of the needle, and the needle advances really easily. Again, this is the delicate PMMA haptics in this Sensar lens. As long as you execute it properly and you align the haptic to the needle, flatten the haptic on the bevel of the needle, it will go in without any resistance. I disengage my needle from the syringe with the hemostat, internalize the leading haptic with microforceps, holding the incision with forceps. Again, with the left side needle, the 30 gauge thin wall needle, I puncture at the first mark, puncturing through the conjunctiva and then into the sclera, making sure I'm nice and flat, tunneling through the sclera, feeling the resistance, holding the incision with the forceps for that counter force, get to that second mark, and then I dive down. Using microforceps to grasp the leading haptic, and again, I'm able to hold it fairly far away, but it doesn't matter because I know that if I dock the haptic on the bevel of the needle, it will stay on the needle and I can re-grab the needle very easily without trouble. And you can see because all of my action with the leading haptic is away from me, it's so much easier from an ergonomic perspective to be able to cannulate that leading haptic through that left side needle. So much easier. So even if I'm struggling a little bit like I am here, you saw I had to kind of release that haptic from the needle because it wasn't going in properly, and then I started again, and once I did it again, it went right in. So sometimes your angle, sometimes you get stuck on the bevel of the needle. The point is you can start over without any difficulty. I pull that left side needle towards me because that's the direction it came from. And as the haptic comes out, you grasp it with the forceps. And here it's very important, turn off infusion and then dry the haptic with a wet cell sponge. And then perform cautery. You can see there's still some wetness there. It didn't create a nice clean flange bulb. So I'm holding the haptic, dry it with wet cell sponge again, and then cauterize again. So that side looks great. I'm pulling the right side needle away from me because again, that's the direction in which it came. I hold the haptic with microforceps as it comes out. And then you want to make sure you turn infusion off, dry the haptic completely, because if the haptic is not dry, then the cautery is ineffective. Now that it's dry, go ahead and cauterize the tip. And now I have a beautifully executed Yamane technique with the haptics within the sclera. You push the haptics flush to the sclera, reapproximate the conjunctiva, and I have a well-centered, not just a well-centered lens, but a well-positioned lens from an anterior-posterior position. You want to simulate the proper lens position, and you want to minimize tilt. And so that's very, very important. And how do you do that? By making sure you have a nice tunnel with your needle through the sclera. This is the surgical PI now. Through a contralateral limbal incision, I go all the way across temporally. And this is the PI setting. Turn the port down. Make sure I don't eat the iris 2 peripherally because this will cause hemorrhage because you'll be eating the ciliary body and you'll get a big old vitreous hemorrhage. And this is really a bummer for the patient because the vision's going to be terrible. So you want to go a little bit proximal to the far periphery, eat the iris, and this will help avoid that vitreous hemorrhage. And I switch to anterior vitrectomy now and perform some more vitrectomy within the anterior chamber. I don't have any vitreous. I didn't encounter any vitreous after the initial part of the case. Go ahead and close my main incision. I always close my main incision when I'm dealing with these cases because I don't want to see any vitreous at the end of the case. Even though I feel like I did a really good job removing the vitreous, you just never know. And here I'm using the vitrector on the cortex mode, turning off the cutter and just using the aspiration and vacuum setting to remove any viscoelastic that's in the anterior chamber. And I'm pulsing BSS into the anterior chamber to loosen up any trapped viscoelastic in the angle. Again, you can see perfectly executed surgery. The lens optic is well centered. It's not tilted at all. And all of that has to do with, again, cataract surgery is all about the previous step and executing the previous step properly. Yamane surgery is really the same thing. You want to make sure every step is properly executed. You need to make sure every step is properly executed in order to achieve an excellent outcome. Go ahead and grab the trocar cannula and pull it out, massaging my incision as I do that. And then I turn on infusion, and you can see there's no ballooning of the conj, which means that was a self-sealing sclerotomy. So I feel good about that. You want to massage the conjunctiva, make sure that it covers up that sclerotomy as well. Pull the AC maintainer out, and then I'll hydrate my incisions, put some subconjunctival antibiotic and steroid at the end of the case, and that's it. So again, this is a dislocated 3-piece lens. You saw how I was able to strategically dry the eye, get nice and discrete marks, making sure everything is proper before I do anything else. And then I make my incisions, my limbal incisions, and then my trocar cannula incision, placing viscoelastic to coat the cornea, pulling the lens piece up very carefully using a two-handed forceps technique, cutting the lens in half with micro scissors, and then strategically cutting it in such a way that I know how to pull each piece out as atraumatically as possible. You want to make sure the haptic collapses on itself, that it's not going to act like a fish hook and hook your incision or scratch the cornea. So therefore, I pull that right piece out, rotate the left piece 180 degrees, and then pull that piece out as well. Again, very little vitreous that's encountered in these cases in my experience, and low risk for retinal problems in my experience. Once I clean up the anterior chamber and anterior vitreous space of any potential vitreous, performing the Yamane technique, again, using my trailing haptic technique first, which again is, externalizing the leading haptic through a contralateral imbal incision, using a 25 gauge needle passive docking technique. By doing it this way, you're not grabbing that delicate PMMA haptic tip, which can totally destroy your ability to execute this technique with the 30 gauge thin wall needle. And then tackling the trailing haptic, again, because the leading haptic is outside the eye, the optic is able to be pushed away. And so you have much more ergonomic friendly approach of dealing with the trailing haptic, docking the haptic on the bevel of the needle, and then it glides right in. Again, even though I struggled with the leading haptic a little bit, because it's away from me, it's so much easier and from that perspective to be able to just reset and do it again. So I disengaged the haptic from the needle, docked it again, and slid right in. Cauterizing each haptic separately and then pushing the bulbs down. And you saw, again, a well-centered lens at the end of the case, and this patient did extremely well. So I hope this was helpful to you, and I thank you for your attention.